Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Maloney. I'm the chair of the Department of Economics and the director of the Tanner Human Rights Center here at the University of Utah. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this evening's event. This year is the 10th year of programming for the Tanner Human Rights Center. We've been very fortunate this year to be able to collaborate with Amnesty International and with the Utah Film Center. And I want to particularly thank Geraldine Dreyfus for the generosity of her time and her effort in helping us to put this together. And with them, we've hosted a series of events examining the work of artists as human rights advocates. And so we've been talking a little bit in these events about what characterizes the particular role of an artist in this work. I'm an economist. It's not a very artful profession, really, so I'm not the best person to answer this question. But I was struck by a few of the things that we discussed last night at the film screening. And so what I think I've learned from our guests this spring is that these artists have the capacity and the courage to make the invisible visible. That was a big theme last night, to bring hidden suffering and hidden injustice to light. And also, in my view, what really struck me is the empathy of imagination that these artists demonstrate that helps us understand each other. And as Alice Walker said last night, helps us understand ourselves. She mentioned, when you read a good book, the book sort of reveals you to yourself. And so this empathy and this greater understanding, I think, can be a source of healing in situations of conflict and a source of justice where there's injustice. And so I think that's what I've learned over these few days about what the particular role of artists is in this work. I want to thank our collaborators and sponsors who've made this spring's events possible, especially the O.C. Tanner Company, the College of Social and Behavioral Science, the Honors College here at the university, the Office of the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, the Tanner Humanities Center, the Office of the Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Salt Lake Community College. I know we have a number of students from the community college here tonight. We're very, very grateful to have them with us. The S.J. Quinney College of Law, and Catherine Lindquist and Jim Moore. I also want to thank the other folks who work at the center, Alita Tu and Victoria Medina, for their energy and their creativity in putting together this year's events. And of course, as always, we're really grateful for the vision and the generosity that Barbara and Norman Tanner showed in establishing this center 10 years ago. So please join me in thanking them. And it's my great pleasure now to welcome Deborah Daniels. Deborah is the Assistant Vice President for the Women's Enrollment Initiative and the Director of the University of Utah Women's Resource Center, and she will serve as the host for this evening's event. Deborah.
Good evening. What a fabulous occasion this is. I feel honored. When I was asked if I would introduce Alice Walker, once I accepted the honor, I said, how does one introduce someone that you have read about your whole, a good part of my life, that has written poems that have touched me in my heart, that made me question because I didn't quite understand at some points. And I thought, so do I start with the many, many accomplishments and awards, the novels and poetry, or her childhood and upbringing? Yes. Her childhood in the South, which is so similar to many African American and Black family stories, and certainly my family story. A story of strong parents living under exceptionally difficult and challenging conditions with one thought of getting their children out and educated. Alice's childhood was a springboard and informed who she is today and inspired her great many accomplishments. Walker was born in Putnam County, Georgia, the youngest of 8 children, to Willie Lee Walker and to Minnie Lou Tallulah Grant. Her father, who was, in her words, was wonderful at math, but a terrible farmer. He earned about $300 a year from his sharecropping and dairy farming. That'd be about $4,000 in 2013. Her mother supplemented the family income by working as a maid. She worked 11 hours a day for $17 a week to help pay for Alice to attend college. Living under the Jim Crow laws, Walker's parents resisted landlords who expected the children of black sharecroppers to work the fields at a young age. A white plantation owner said to her that black people had no need for education. Minnie Lou Walker, according to her daughter, replied, "You might have some black children somewhere, but they don't live in this house. Don't ever come around here again asking about my children talking about my children don't need to learn how to read and write." Her mother enrolled Alice in first grade when she was 4 years old. Growing up with oral tradition, listening to stories from her grandfather, who was the model for the character of Mr. in The Color Purple, Walker began writing privately when she was 8 years old. "With my family, I had to hide things," she said, and I kept them in my mind. Alice Walker shared the story of how her father loved education and read everything he could find, even though he was educated through the fourth or fifth grade, and lived a life of poverty working on a plantation. Walker recalls the day her father put her on a segregated bus to pursue opportunities he never had. As soon as Walker boarded the bus, she chose a seat at the front, thinking of Rosa Parks' action in Montgomery. A white woman complained, and she was forced to move back. It was a poignant moment as she looked at her father through the bus window. Walker knew that what she was up against, and she knew she wasn't going to stand for it. Sitting in the seats in the front of the bus or at the head of the table became something of a habit for Alice as she grew and developed into one of our national treasures. Alice Walker has been defined as one of the key international writers of the 20th century. Walker made history as the first African-American woman to win a Pulitzer Prize for Literature, as well as the National Book Award in 1983 for her novel, The Color Purple. One of few literary books to capture the popular imagination and leave a permanent imprint. The award-winning novel served as an inspiration for Steven Spielberg's 1985 film and was adapted for stage, opening in New York City Broadway's theater in 2005, and capturing a Tony Award for the Best Leading Actress and Musical in 2006. An internationally celebrated author, poet, and activist, Walker's books include 7 novels, 4 collections of short stories, 4 children's books, and volumes of essays and poetry. Walker has written many additional bestsellers, among them Possessing the Secret of Joy, which details the devastating effects of female genital mutilation and led to the 1993 documentary Warrior Marks, a collaboration with British Indian filmmaker Pratiba Parmar, Alice Walker as the executive producer. Walker's work has been translated into more than 24 languages, and her books have sold more than 15 million copies. An activist? I'd say so. Walker, who was a progressive feminist, worked to make women realize their significance and ability. In 1983, she coined the term womanism to mean black feminism. The term was made to unite colored feminists under one term. She said, "Womanism gives us a word of our own." Walker met Martin Luther King Jr. when she was a student at Spelman College in the early 1960s. She credits King for her decision to return to the American South as a civil rights activist for the civil rights movement. She took part in the 1963 March on Washington. Later, she volunteered to register Black voters in Georgia and Mississippi. Alice Walker's activism has been central to who she is as a grown woman. Her activism has taken her all over the world. Her work as an activist propelled her into a world far beyond her upbringings in the American South. I believe that her early life experience informs her deep compassion for others, her sense of justice, her desire for a humane and just world. Her work as a writer, activist, and advocate and educator is a core of rooting out oppression and bringing those who are marginalized and oppressed to the center of dignity where their humanity can be uplifted. In 2008, Walker wrote a letter to President Obama. It was published online by The Root. Walker addresses the newly elected president as Brother Obama, and she says, "Seeing you take your rightful place based solely on your wisdom, stamina, and character is a balm for the weary warriors of hope previously only sung about." I'm sorry, I'm sorry. As we think about this, as I think about the term, the balm for the soul, she has been a balm for many a soul. She has been that person that many people have looked to when they see activism from Black women, and to learn of the steps that they have taken and made to move forward. I am honored to be here today speaking to you about a woman who is an icon to many of us and is a balm to the soul for many of us in ways that we can hardly imagine. I would like to ask you if you would please join me in welcoming Alice Walker.
Well, I'm very happy to see you. And I really must say that my feeling about Obama is not the same. And just to get that cleared away, I have been very disappointed and disillusioned. I don't believe in droning. Especially, I don't believe in, sending people back to death in El Salvador and Nicaragua and all those places that we've destroyed. I don't like the way he can't stand up to Israel. I think that is just appalling. And I think that it puts us all more and more in danger every minute. So that leads to my needing to read the first poem, which is Democratic Womanism. Because even though I have spent over half a century either trying to get the vote myself, trying to get other people to the voting booth, being shot at and firebombed for trying to vote, seeing the vote is so precious to us, I now realize that the whole thing is a charade, and I don't believe in it. So now you may or may not believe, that's your affair, and most of you have had a better time of it in this country than I have had. But it is not something that is honest. Even if you choose someone that you deeply care about and support someone that you deeply care about, it really, in the end, is not going to mean very much, I hate to tell you. I myself really am delighted to have Bernie Sanders running and speaking about some things that have needed to be spoken about, you know. But as we see with Obama, one person in the White House is not going to be the change that we want to see for everyone. It just isn't possible, because the office of president in this country is not really a place of that much power. It's a place where you are told what to do, and you do it or not, or suffer the consequences. And then there is the Citizens United, which means that no matter what we do, the people who have the money will buy your leadership. And we know this, and we're heartbroken. And on some level, I think all of us, you know, not just poor people in the South, not just black people who've tried so hard to believe in something in this country, but all of us know that we are being just run around. You know, I mean, it's not, you know, the media, for instance. I mean, who can possibly believe those people? You know, I mean, who the heck are they? I mean, how plastic can you be? And how uninformed, really? The mainstream media is really corrupt and hopeless. And to believe in it is to be led way off your own compass. You actually have a compass. You have an inner compass, and it works very well. But if you're sitting in front of a huge TV or your internet or wherever, and you're just forced to imbibe all this ridiculous stuff, you know, how can you know what's happening? How can you know what you're doing? It's impossible. And honestly, without some practice to give you a sense of your own mind, you're lost. We're lost. Most Americans don't even know they have a mind. It's been taken over. It's full of junk. And you know this is true. I mean, most of our children, a lot of them can't even spend 10 minutes in silence. They don't even know what it is anymore. So how do you even know who you are? So anyway, at the last, you know, circus, really, the electoral circus, I decided that I just could not go there, and that my people are too precious to me for me to collude in something that's just a travesty, that they have worked so hard and died in such numbers and been firebombed and beaten and driven from their homes, trying to make something out of this country that is really meaningful to everyone, where everyone can live in dignity and peace. That hasn't happened. You know, the Native people, you know what has happened to the Native people. You know, pushed to little corners of their land, and then what little was left of goodness in the land, if the corporations discover it's there, they come and take it. And then they leave all the junk for the children to get sick from and die. Those people used to be the healthiest people on the planet. So it's really worth trying to look beneath what makes you feel good. I think many people of color are so happy to see someone who looks like us. And I'm happy too, and I'm happy he's good looking. And you know, and he speaks well. And I think there is goodness there. But I also think it's going to take an awful lot of soul reclamation to deal with what he has had to do in office. And it's not worth it. I don't think there's a country under the sun that's worth your soul, especially not this one. So democratic womanism. You ask me why I smile when you tell me you intend in the coming, when I tell you, wait a minute. This is one of the challenges of reading with several different glasses. And I'm sure some of you are at that point. You ask me why I smile when you tell me you intend in the coming national elections to hold your nose and vote for the lesser of two evils. Now, you hear this all the time. I'm going to hold my nose and vote for the lesser of two evils, right? There are more than two evils out there is one reason I smile. Another is that our old buddy Nostradamus comes to mind with his dreadful 400-year-old prophecy that our world, and theirs too, meaning our enemies, all their kids and dogs and everything, will end by nuclear Nakba, a Holocaust, in our lifetime. You know about this prophecy, right? Which makes the idea of elections and the billions of dollars wasted on them somewhat fatuous. A Southerner of color, my people held the vote very dear, while others for centuries merely appeared to play with it. One thing I can assure you of is this: I will never betray such pure hearts by voting for evil, even if it were microscopic, which, as you can see in any newscast, no matter the slant, that it is not. I want something else, a different system entirely, one not seen on this earth for thousands of years, if ever. Democratic womanism. Notice how this word has man right in the middle of it. Womanism. That's one reason I like it. He is there, front and center, but he is surrounded. I want to vote and work for a way of life that honors the feminine, a way that acknowledges the theft of the wisdom female and dark mother leadership might have provided our spaceship all along. I am not thinking of a talking head kind of gal, happy to be mixing it up with the baddest bad boys on the planet, her eyes a slit, her mouth a zipper. No, I am speaking of true regime change, where women rise to take their place en masse at the helm of Earth's frail and failing ship, where each 1,000 years of our silence is examined with regret, and the cruel manner in which our values of compassion and kindness have been ridiculed and suppressed, brought to bear on the disaster of the present time. The past must be examined closely, I believe, before we can leave it there. I am thinking of democratic and perhaps socialist womanism. For who else knows so deeply how to share but mothers and grandmothers, big sisters and aunts, to love and adore both female and male, not to mention those in between. To work at keeping the entire community fed, educated, and safe. Democratic womanism, democratic socialist womanism, would have as its icons such fierce warriors for good as Vandana Shiva, Aung San Suu Kyi, Wangari Maathai, Harriet Tubman, Yoko Ono, Frida Kahlo, Angela Davis, Celia Sanchez, and Barbara Lee, with new ones always arising. You are also on this list, but it is so long, Isis, the goddess, would appear midway, that I must stop or be unable to finish the poem. So just know I've stood you in a circle that includes Marian Wright Edelman, Amy Goodman, Sojourner Truth, Gloria Steinem, and Mary McLeod Bethune. John Brown, Frederick Douglass, John Lennon, and Howard Zinn are there too, happy to be surrounded. There is no system now in place that can change the disastrous course Earth is on. Who can doubt this? The male leaders of Earth appear to have abandoned their very senses, though most appear to live now entirely in their heads. They murder humans and other animals, forests and rivers and mountains, Every day they are in office and never seem to notice it. They eat and drink devastation. Women of the world, is this devastation us? Would we kill whole continents for oil or anything else rather than limit the number of consumer offspring we produce and learn how to make our own fire? Democratic womanism, democratic socialist womanism, a system of governance we can dream and imagine and build together. One that recognizes at least 6,000 years of brutally enforced complicity in the assassination of Mother Earth, but foresees 6,000 years ahead of us when we will not submit. What will we need? 100 years at least to plan. 500 will be handed us gladly when the planet is scared enough, in which circles of women meet, organize ourselves, and allied with men brave enough to stand with women, nurture our planet to a degree of health, and without apology, impossible to make a bigger mess than has been made, devote ourselves, heedless of opposition, to tirelessly serving and resuscitating our mothership, and with gratitude for her care of us, worshipfully commit to rehabilitating it. Democratic motherism. My partner, a musician and Vietnam veteran, virtually kidnapped and forced to serve in that disastrous and genocidal war without his consent, is someone brave enough to stand with women, unafraid of being surrounded by or led by them. In conversing about what it would take to reclaim our planet, we agreed that what Earth needs more than anything is mothering. Mother Earth needs mothers, regardless of gender, though we all recognize who most mothers have been and are. Mothering is an instinct, yes, but it is also a practice. It can be learned. For women, it has been an aeons-long experience, the art and necessity of taking care of all, of everything, of mothering. So perhaps the new ism we are talking about is not classic womanism, but motherism, democratic motherism. In any case, we will continue to endure and detest the systems currently in place in which the condition of countless starving, tortured, enslaved, and murdered children is seen as acceptable, unless we forthrightly begin to envision and work for something better, some way for humans to exist and thrive without suffering the despair of every second of every day, knowing our present predicament's greatest cause is humanity's fear of sharing equally with others. And it's rapidly growing, partly because of this fear, self-hatred. On a recent visit to a still and quiet sacred site in Hawaii that is now surrounded by the pollution of unimaginable overcrowdedness and lack of peace, I recently experienced an insight that seemed at the time to be a direct message from ancestors who had used that site for thousands of years. It came to me in the form of the name for a new world political party. No kidding. The Mother Defend Yourself Party. Mother referring to Earth. A poem, of course, accompanied it. Mother, defend yourself. We who love you stand witness. We who love you stand witness to your innocence. One of this party's first responsibilities would be to unite all segments of the globe in making offerings at the scene of every place the earth fights back in the effort to reclaim her freedom and integrity from the tyranny imposed on her by humanity. where dams have burst, where forest fires have raged, where hillsides have crumbled, where rivers have run wild, I am saying, as I believe, that we must begin again to have conversation with our planet. It was in Hawaii on an earlier visit, again to a sacred site, although of course all of Hawaii is sacred, that this became even clearer to me. A friend and I had gone on a tour of sorts that brought us to this place. We got out of the van and stood with our group at the designated lookout point. We were looking into a landscape that, though beautiful in the Kodak moment sense, was lifeless and uninspiring. I commented on this to my Hawaiian friend, an artist, who shrugged and said, "Of course, that is because what you're looking at, this whole area, was traditionally sung to." "What?" I said. "Yeah," she said. "Where we're standing used to be almost like a stage. Folks who knew what they were doing, praising the Aina, the land, would come here and sing their gratitude." "Well," I said, "you are a singer. Sing." Grabbing her tiny ukulele, which accompanied her everywhere, she did just that. As she sang in Hawaiian, a language outlawed by U.S. colonial rule for decades, her aunt had created a Hawaiian dictionary in an effort to preserve the language. It seemed to me the trees and other vegetation responded by standing taller, fluffing themselves up. The flowers among them appeared to fling their scent. I became vividly aware of everything's aliveness. This token of gratitude, awareness, affection might be our party's first step. This is a poem called "Why Peace is Always a Good Idea." You would think it would be self-evident that peace is a good thing for the world. It's quite remarkable, isn't it, that you have all these peace talks and they never get anywhere, really? It's because there are people in this world who really, really like war. And we have to learn to love peace much more than we love war. So much so that we're willing to actually stop the war. And that has been something many of us, I'm sure in this room, have tried in whatever way you could, whether a die-in, whether being jailed, whether marching. Anyway, but peace. Why peace is always a good idea. Because you could plant peach trees, and because of peace, you could eat them in 5 or 6 years. Peaches, not trees. And your children could eat them after you're gone. And because you could not see a friend for a long, long time, but because there is peace, you would not lose them forever, but see them next time they come to town. You could go ice skating or roller skating, and no guns would go off scaring you. You could grow old and have a nice long beard, and no rockets would appear to set fire to it. You could swim in the ocean and see turtles and whales, and nothing would interrupt you, even if you fell asleep on your back. Not a single bomb would be going off anywhere. And people would let you drift to shore, and then they'd wake you with music and some food that would be strange to you, but so delicious. They want you to like their peaceful land. They want to learn about yours. Peace is great for that sort of thing. And when you went home, there would be a whole house intact waiting for you, your room warm and cozy, and your dog happy to see you, and everything, even the cat, might take a look at you. Seriously, as if she cared. All this can happen in peace, never in war. And that is why peace is always, always a good idea. Earth likes it too. She's tired of being marched on and hit by crazy humans who never see how sweet she is or appreciate her windstorms or her curves. We have to stop wanting what other people have to the point of destroying them to get it. In fact, it should become shameful to be seen as a person who wants something so desperately that they're willing to dispossess a family, kill people for it. That should just be such a shameful notion that nobody would want to ever do that. Instead, it happens all the time, and people just somehow are not bothered. It's amazing. So this is a poem called Hope, and what we can hope not to want. We can hope not to be the kind of person who is insensitive to the pain that we cause to other people. Hope never to covet, hope never to covet the neighbor's house with a fragrant garden from which a family has been driven by your soldiers. Mother, father, grandparents, the toddler, and the dog, now homeless, huddled, holding on to each other, stunned and friendless beneath you in the street. Sitting on cobblestones as if on the sofas inside that you have decided to clean, recover, and keep. Hope never to say yes to their misery. Hope never to gaze down into their faces from what used to be their rooftop. Hope never to believe this robbery will make you a better citizen of your new country as you unfurl and wave its recent flag that has been given to assure you of this impossibility. And this is called Hope to Sin Only in the Service of Waking Up. I'm not one of those people who believes you should not sin. How else are you going to learn? But you don't have to stay there, and you can find what is good about sinning. So hope to sin only in the service of waking up. Hope never to believe it is your duty or right to harm another simply because you mistakenly believe they are not you. Hope to understand suffering as the hard assignment, even in school, you wish to avoid but could not. Hope to be imperfect in all the ways that keep you growing. Hope never to see another, not even a blade of grass, that is beyond your joy. Hope not to be a snob the very day love shows up in love's work clothes. Hope to see your own skin in the wood grains of your house. Hope to talk to trees and at last tell them everything you've ever wanted to say to them. Hope at the end to enter the unknown, knowing yourself, forgetting yourself also. Hope to be consumed, to disappear into your own love. Hope to know where you are, paradise, if nobody else does. Hope that every failure is an arrow pointing toward enlightenment. Hope to sin only in the service of waking up. This is called The Part of God That Stings. I am in agreement with the Buddha that these are natural, perhaps inevitable human states, that spiritual retreats, though invaluable, are not essential to their achievement. One day, it will simply become crystal clear that all creatures younger than us are our children, just as all creatures and entities older than us, trees and oceans included, are our parents. Amma, the hugging saint from Kerala, has put this beautifully. She speaks of this awareness of being mother of all while being mothered by all as divine love, as God. One day, perhaps while sitting blankly before a leaping fire at home, or even while stalled in traffic on the freeway, you will realize that all creatures, when they enter your house, are guests, regardless of whether they frighten you. The ant, the gecko, the cockroach, the bat, and that you are a guest also in their much larger house. Mutual respect, though this seldom means no cursing or killing at all, is due. There will seem to be a few exceptions, but surely this is illusion as so much is. For instance, scorpions, vipers, yellow jackets in paradise. How to accept gracefully the part of God that stings. How's the time doing? And how are you all doing? You doing good? Okay, I'll read a few more and then we can do our part. Let's see. I started writing very early in my life, and I so love it. I have just loved having this this place of transparency. You know, when you're really writing at the height of the intensity of creation, you disappear. You disappear to yourself. And I think even for the people around you, you disappear, and they get mad at you. You know, I think my daughter just got so angry with me at times because what was sitting there writing was not her mother. It was something else. You know, I was making something. And it's just an amazing state. I mean, I think, you know, anybody who does creative work, writing or sculpting or painting, will have periods when you realize that it is such an amazing gift to be able to enter that state of consciousness where it is as if you merge with the creation itself. It's entirely wonderful. This is a poem called We Are All So Busy, and this is, you know, busyness is very not so good for us. And it would be wonderful if we could just kind of streamline our activities, not to have so much of that, because it's distracting, and you lose the connection. You know, busyness is fraught, and you don't want to live your life in fraughtness. You rather live your life feeling connected to the source, feeling connected to your ancestors, you know, feeling connected to all the beings who have been through here, you know, for so long that we have no way of even imagining, really. You know, we can learn things, we can be told things, we can be taught things, but some things still escape us. So this is called We Are All So Busy. We are all so busy. We say, I am on fire to see you, but next week I'll be away in Boston, and the week after that I have an important meeting in Kalamazoo. Ah, Kalamazoo, a place I spend far too much time in myself. I spend far too much time myself in Kalamazoo. So everybody, I'm sure, in this room has a Kalamazoo, that place where you're going when really the work of the heart, the work of actually connecting with each other has to be done, while you're somewhere, not just roaming about in space. In fact, that line that I so love, I don't know where it comes from, but the line that says you have to be present to win, it's true on so many levels that in friendship, you have to be present to win. And in a marriage, in a relationship, you have to be present to win. And I'm kind of late getting there in some ways because I've been so distracted by this calling to create what has seemed to me to be, needed from me by history, by ancestry. But I can definitely feel, the rightness of presence. It's a wonderful gift to give to each other, to actually be somewhere, to be there. So I think I'll just read a couple more, and then Pratiba and I will. I want to read you I have a real love of Frida Kahlo. I love Mexico. I spend as much time there as I can. And when I first discovered her many years ago, before she was known very much, her work in this country, I was just so overwhelmed, and the magic of her spirit, this formidable woman, this great painter, and this person who understood, that you can transcend so much pain and suffering through creativity. She's a wonderful mentor for the young, I think, because she was just such a, badass, actually, Frida. Anyway, so I used to have these dreams about her, and this is one that I like, partly for the elephants, because I have a great love of elephants. And, like many of you, I'm sure it is heart-rending to see the slaughter of elephants by people who, who are they? What kind of being would do to elephants what is being done to them now, It's frightful. It makes you wonder about, who the two-leggeds are, where they came from, and all of that. So anyway, dream of Frida Kahlo. It was big. It was a sea of shit. Neither she nor I had any notion what to do with it. Our mothers came. One resourceful, the other stout, and using just their thoughts, soon they had contained the odious ocean in a pot that was not only clean, but shining. Standing over it, they smiled at us, beloved daughters, left suddenly with much less work to do. Then, like Cheshire cats, they disappeared, their smiles like light, the crescent moon on our foreheads. Frida died that night. We laid her out, well-dressed, of course, beneath the star-bespeckled sky. There was a cloud for beauty, but even so, she being Frida was not under it. At dawn, all the roosters in the world began to crow, and I, my arms out wide-stretched, raised her long, dark braid to greet the sun. To her funeral, not only traveled Diego and many masters who had lived before, but also, a long line of stately swaying elephants, their images left behind them engraved in stone, came slowly down, gravely down, emphatically down, to pay their respects to Frida Kahlo from the hills.
I would like to introduce and welcome Pratiba Parmar. She is a filmmaker whose work focuses on telling stories surrounding race, sexuality, and feminism. She is a frequent collaborator with Alice Walker. Her film, Alice Walker, Beauty and Truth, is her most recent feature documentary film and chronicles Walker's life from the cotton fields of Georgia to becoming the first African-American to win the Pulitzer Prize. First African-American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize. Parmar's film, Warrior Marks, examines the practice of female mutilation and features Alice Walker's interviews with women who have experienced this practice. Parmar has a number of awards, including the 1 in 10 Visionary Award, the Pink Peacock Award, and the Frameline Film Festival Lifetime Achievement Award. Join me in welcoming Parmar to the stage. Let's move that so. Could have been worse.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I mic'd up okay? Good, great. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to Barbara Tanner and to Geraldine Dreyfus and everyone who has worked so hard, and to Tom, to the Utah Human Rights Department here, Center, to making the last 2 days for Alice and I so full and so full of wonderful conversations and meetings. I know that we're running late on time, so I want to make sure that you all have opportunities to ask Alice any questions or comments. So I'll just sort of kick-start it and then take questions from the floor and coordinate a Q&A. Alice, I wanted to ask a couple of questions, but first question I wanted to ask was that in this book of poems, The World Will Follow Joy, Turning Madness into Flowers, what does it mean to you to turn madness into flowers? What is the kind of madness that you, through your creativity, through your poems, are trying to, how do you find your way through it?
Well, I think that humans have to awaken to their need for joy and to feel that they actually deserve joy, and that it's something that, we can accomplish. And in that realm of activity, we will automatically turn the madness into flowers in the same way that, for instance, my mother, who always had a garden and was always fighting some white man or other over whether she could send her children to school or whether she could have food or whatever, she turned that misery and that anger into one of the most radiant gardens in the whole county. So I'm thinking of people being able to transform what has to be, even people who, I'm making a real guess here, but I would imagine with the state of the world being as it is, there's a lot of heartache in this room, and that people are conscious that we are seeing developing in the world and on the planet things that are just totally unconscionable, and actually we shouldn't stand for them. And so it's the responsibility that in trying to pursue the happiness of the planet, not just your neighborhood, but the happiness of, or your city or wherever. But in the pursuit of transforming this, you turn misery, into something that is beautiful. And we can do that if we can, do it together.
Mm-hmm. Which, speaks to quite a bit to your life as an activist. And, my sense of that is that you use your activism as a way to not just make sense, but to challenge what you see in the world, injustice. And through that, you create these incredible poems, and these poems become calls to action in a way. So I wanted to ask my second question, and then I'm going to open it up, which is, for you, what is the role of silence and meditation in your life, in your creative life?
I love it. I meditate. I'm not as good at it these days as I have been for most of my adult life. I'm backsliding a bit. Realize I really need it though, because it's such an incredibly centering practice. Silence I can have though. A lot of the time I spend far in the country, and the silence is wonderful. I don't even hear, most of the time, traffic way down on the road somewhere in the distance. So I have this sense of a world that is not completely, cut into bits by noise. We live in a world that is just, it seems to me, just a mixed salad of noise. And that we have let ourselves become accustomed to it, and we become accustomed to interruption all the time, which is death to any kind of sense of wholeness and actual vision. You really need to have something in your life that helps you to ground with the reality of being on this planet and not somewhere else. Connected to the forces that actually give meaning to life here. And nature as a support for us has to be encouraged to flourish and to continue to be a support. It's being destroyed right under us. I mean, we all know this. It's just being, fracked to death. And people, because they are, greedy, basically, are just devouring their own habitat, and it's tragic. So I love silence. I love meditation. I'm so thankful for Buddhism because it is a practice and a philosophy that encourages this kind of action, this kind of, or non-action. Just learning to be with what is, and being able to then go out into the world, in a way that's useful, even when you're exasperated. And it is easy to be exasperated in this culture because there's so many things that are, just clearly out of balance. It's a very, very unbalanced culture.
Thank you. So, there's so many of you here. I'm sure there are many comments and questions. So who's got a question? Yeah.
Thank you both so much.
Do you want to use one of the mics? There's mics there.
Please just stand up to the mic. They're recording this, so we do need everyone's questions to go through the mic.
Thank you both so much for coming here. I admire both of your work so much. I had a question about what international solidarity looks like to you and what international struggle looks like. I think that we see struggle mirroring each other in a lot of different countries. For example, you see that in Ferguson, in Ferguson they use the same tear gas canisters that they use in Palestine. And you see that a lot of the cops in the US are trained by the IDF. So I was wondering what international solidarity looks like for both of you.
I didn't understand this, did you?
Yeah. What does international solidarity look like when in Ferguson the same kind of tear gas tactics are used as in Palestine and elsewhere?
Well, I think for me, international solidarity has been just that you show up, and whoever is there then becomes who you're standing with. The place that came to mind immediately for me was Cuba, where I have been in solidarity with the revolution since 1959. In 1959, Fidel and Martin Luther King were coming to visibility at the same time. And the revolution, our revolution was very much influenced by theirs and theirs by ours. And over the years, it has been a wonderful thing to travel over a lot of the world and to see that wherever you are, there will always be people who support the basic human struggle for freedom and dignity. I mean, it's global. So if you feel compassion for people, if you understand that, whether it's you or you can feel compassion for yourself, but if you feel that someone in the world needs you to stand with them, and you have the resources, whether physical, mental, spiritual, then, and money too, then do that. You just go. You just go, and if you don't do anything but just appear. I have gone I've shown up at places where at the time I was too ill to even stand, and just laid this was the trial of Dennis Banks. It was framed for blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I ended up trying to get to stand with the Native American people who were once again being, very badly used. And I had Lyme disease, so at the time I could only really basically get there and lie on the ground. But it was such a healing experience that I started recovering from just making the effort. So that's the other side of solidarity. You have to think of solidarity as something that strengthens you. It does in ways that you can't even imagine, because there's something about living up to your own spirit, to the demand of your own soul, that you act, that I think is very healthy, and it can really actually improve whatever situation that you are dealing with internally.
Yeah. Next question.
Yeah, good evening, and thanks again for coming. Thanks for everyone who supported you getting here. On May 2nd, the faculty of this university will be voting yes or no to recommend fossil fuel divestment or not recommend fossil fuel divestment. So my question to you is, what's been your experience or understanding around divestment to help end apartheid, or any other divestment campaigns? There's ones around Palestinian rights as well. And then what is your opinion on fossil fuel divestment?
I'm not so up to date on the fossil fuel, but I can talk about Palestine and the BDS movement, which this country is trying to squelch, which is just shameful. I mean, I think Obama, I don't know if he signed into law this bill saying that we can't boycott Israel because of its treatment of Palestinians. I can't fathom where his mind is, but whatever his mind is thinking, it's not in the right direction of freedom and justice, and so it will fail. I mean, it may not look like it's failing, but it's inevitable. That's because people are not going to stop. I think once awakened to something that is really wrong, I mean truly wrong, and everybody sees it, it won't be stopped. And I think for those of us who believe in it, if they want to put us in prison, then we should just say, we're ready. I think that should be our response. Because we're not going to abandon it. It's too precious. You realize that when we were in the South, part of our liberation was because we could boycott the buses where they made us sit in the back. And our leaders said, Coretta and Martin and the other people, and Rosa Parks, said, no, if you are determined that we have to sit in the back, we just won't ride your bus. And that is what is happening with the Palestinian issue. I mean, if we can't make any other impact, They have all the guns, they have all the bombs. You know, I've been there, and I've seen what they do. So they have all the weapons. What do we have? We have only boycott. And, you know, it's 50 years later, but I think that is still the way to do it, because it is not violent and it is selective, which means that it's not even harming everyone. I mean, it's really saying that some of these corporations that are deliberately making so much money on the misery of these people whose land has been stolen, you know, this is just not right, and we will not stand for it. And it's too bad that our president won't be with us, but then we're not with him on droning, right?
Is there any more questions? Yeah, would you like to stand, go to the mic?
Again, thank you for your inspirational words. I just recently discovered you, but my partner had been reading all your stuff for her research. But one of the things that really, I guess, touched me about your work is when you talk about your mother and your grandmother and their gardens, right? One of the things, me growing up, that's how I learned about who I am, was through being in the garden with them. And every summer when we go back home, I try to make sure that my 4-year-old and my 1-year-old spend time with their grandmothers in the garden. So with this new generation, who all they think about is being connected to something, like you were talking in the media, what would be, I guess, the one advice that you would give them to disconnect themselves and to be able to truly be an activist in trying to change the way the world is right now?
Did you get all that? I think I do. I think you're saying what advice would I give to the young people?
Yeah, because I mean, right now, this is what young people are
Right,
doing,
exactly.
to be connected to
Yeah, I
everything.
know.
Not the garden, not
Right. Well, I just moved to my little pied-à-terre in Oakland, California, and I am becoming friends with a woman who is a farmer, and also whose work is to try to help black farmers regain the land that has been taken from them, and to encourage the farmers' markets to either accept the food that is being grown by black farmers or to have markets for black farmers' produce. So there is a stirring, and she travels all over the country, and there is this stirring of interest in going back to the garden and understanding the relationship between food and health, which in some of our communities, honestly, the people have just lost it. They have lost the sense that they have to eat healthy food in order to be healthy. It's shocking. But then when you go to some of the neighborhoods, you see that there are no stores. You see that they're actually trying to buy groceries at liquor stores, or the Safeway has moved somewhere else. So I think that, my feeling is that if you only have a space as big as this place I'm sitting, you turn it into food production. And I think for people of color, especially from the South, what that means basically, at the very minimum, is some kind of collard greens, kale, tomatoes, whatever you can eat that is really good for you. And I know it is very challenging and scary that people are tied to their iPhones. I just got one, and I'm amazed at how tied I've gotten to it. It is so interesting, this little gadget, And I don't know what we can do except, talk to them, and I think they also learn a lot. And I hope one of the things they learn is to be more connected to the actual earth. We actually live on an earth, we live here. And that is a sense that I feel people are losing generationally.
Okay, is that, did we? That's not the microphone. Yeah, that's. Is there any more questions? Surely there's at least one more before we go into the book signing.
Hi, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. This morning I had the opportunity to be at a breakfast for the Wasatch Community Gardens, a really strong establishment here in Salt Lake City, with the support of 2,300 volunteers across the valley. And it's really encouraging what they're doing with both partnering with the city and the county and the state. My question is a little bit, I guess, deeper than that. Yesterday I was driving to work and I was having a conversation with my dad. And he's a farmer, a retired farmer in rural South Dakota. And he was talking about a local family feud and involving land and brothers, and the brothers are no longer speaking to each other and the family is torn apart. And my comment to him was, how can we possibly have peace on earth or any inkling of peace when families, our own blood, can't make it work? I don't know if you'd like to comment on that.
I really hear that too. My family has had many divisions and, and I don't know, except that it's worth the effort, I think, to speak on it, as you probably did to your father, and hopefully, try to make a difference in your own family. It's very, very hard, and it's very distressing that sometimes we cannot get through to the very people that we grew up with, that we know so well. I mean, it is really challenging. But I also think, though, that maybe it is one of those places where it is necessary to try to have a common practice with them of some sort. I mean, with my family, I used to go home in the South and, just invite everybody and have a little bit of a mini circle with them. But honestly, families are the hardest.
Okay.
I want to thank, I'm out of microphones.
Here you go. Use that.
I'll use that then. All right. I want to thank Alice Walker and Pratiba Parmar for the wonderful poems and the wonderful thoughts tonight.